Disclaimer: the We Are One podcast aims to shed light on the abuse experience within the independent fundamental Baptist church. The stories shared are from survivors who bravely recount their personal experiences. It is important to note that unless an abuser has been convicted in a court of law, they are presumed innocent until proven guilty. The podcast does not serve as a legal judgment, but rather as a platform for survivors to share their truth.
Now let's get into today's episode. Here is your host, Olivia.
Welcome back to the We Are One podcast. I'm your host, Olivia. To kind of kick off this Hyles series, I wanted to kind of explain firsthand before we move on with this episode, the reasoning why I wanted to, do this in a way, because yes, there is so many other podcasts and platforms out there that have talked about Jack Hyles, First Baptist Church of Hammond. There's documentaries regarding all of it, and there's tons of proof and survivors out there that have shared their experiences firsthand of what it was like to be raised in that environment. But I also have such a wide variety of listeners and followers and viewers, where however you watch, listen, or whatever with this platform, that have really no idea about Jack Hyles. And if it could help someone kind of understand more of the history aspect of the independent fundamental Baptist movement, or kind of open eyes to someone who's in the IFB, and whether that was because they joined because they were new Christians, or that because they're so sheltered, they're thinking that all IFB churches are like the ones they're in. In reality, that's not true. I want this to be educational in a way, eye-opening, and just kind of come with an open heart. Bear with me. I'm by myself. I'm so used to speaking with survivors. And so this is a little different, just speaking, myself. So I guess to start out, this is the first episode, and I just want to talk about who Jack Hyles is and the empire of First Baptist Church of Hammond. In this series, you will hear from some survivors that may or may not have already been on, but just to come back on and talk a little bit about what else should they have said, some key points, whether that was the time that they were there during a certain scandal that had taken place, kind of cover all of it. And you also will hear firsthand from some new survivors within this series and what they experienced. So let's get into today's episode. Okay, guys, so let's kind of deep dive into who Jack Hyles is. Jack Hyles took over First Baptist Church of Hammond in 1959. His legacy at First Baptist Church of Hammond, if you don't know, it's Hammond, Indiana, is one that many still speak about today. Obviously, they're still up and running. He built one of the largest IFB churches in America. But my question is, at what cost, right? At what cost is it where you stand up and say right is right and wrong is wrong? First Baptist Church of Hammond became a powerhouse, hosting one of the largest bus ministries in the country, bringing in thousands of children every Sunday. And in this clip,
thank God for the Pope. Brother Jack Hyles likes to boast he runs the largest Sunday school in the world. He may be right. Before a cloud of scandal drifted over his First Baptist Church of Hammond, Indiana, Hyles bragged he had a membership of 100,000. The Hyles empire is formidable. In addition to...
You will see that. Hyles also founded Hyles Anderson College, training future IFB pastors to carry on his strict teachings.
In addition to his church, he runs Hyles Anderson Bible College in Schererville, Indiana. Anderson is Russell Anderson, a wealthy Ypsilanti land developer. He's reportedly donated millions of dollars to Hyles over the years. His secretary says he's been on an extended trip and not available for an interview about his relationship with Hyles. Most of Hyles' followers don't have Russell Anderson's deep pockets, but it's not uncommon for believers to donate 20% of their income to Brother Hyles. The only person who knows where the money goes is Jack Hyles.
But behind the growth and success, a darker story was unfolding.
Jack and his wife Beverly Hyles had
4 children, David, Linda, Becky, and Cindy. His son, David Hyles, followed in his footsteps, but not in a way that honored the church. David Hyles became infamous for his predatory behavior, especially while working at First Baptist Church and later at Miller Road Baptist Church in Texas.
The son of the famous preacher man is a suspect in something far more serious than adultery. David Hyles set out to follow in his father's footsteps, but his zest for women cost him his pulpit and his first marriage. When David left a Texas church in disgrace, he and his girlfriend, Brenda Stevens, moved to Bolingbrook, Illinois, with her 2 children by her first marriage. It wasn't long before her youngest son, 17-month-old Brent Stevens, came to the attention of abuse investigators. In 1985, they found him with a broken leg plus 8 or 9 bones in various stages of healing. Paul Cialino was a homicide investigator for the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services. He and his team fought, unsuccessfully, to keep Brent away from David and Brenda.
I wasn't concerned this child was going to be abused again. I was concerned this kid was going to wind up dead.
He was accused of manipulating young women, engaging in inappropriate relationships, even fathering children outside of marriage.
With First Baptist Church of Hammond, Indiana. So Jack Hyles, who is deceased, was my father and my mother's boss. And his son, Jack David Hyles, was my rapist. And that happened when I was 15, and grooming started when I was 14.
Of all the alleged offenders in the independent fundamental Baptist movement, the son of one of the movement's most influential pastors may be the most noteworthy. In the early 1970s, Dave Hyles was put in charge of the youth department of the church his father, Jack Hyles, headed, First Baptist Church in Hammond, Indiana. While there, Dave Hyles was accused of raping Rhonda Lee and Joy Evans Ryder. Lee said Jack Hyles threatened her family when she told him what had happened. By 1981, in Texas, his father's old church. At the time, people at the church said the pastoral search committee was not warned of the accusations against Hyles. In Texas, Dave Hyles allegedly raped 14-year-old Jennifer McCune. Another accuser, Brandy Eckwright, said that Hyles took advantage of her while she sought his counsel. She says she went to Hyles to discuss her own alleged child molestation. The counseling, she said, turned sexual.
And the church and Jack Hyles himself worked to cover for David, repeatedly making sure he was never held accountable, still to this day. Hyles was his alleged affair with his secretary, Jenny.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ari Povich. Welcome to A Current Affair. The First Baptist Church in Hammond, Indiana, is a multi-million-dollar operation. The Hammond, Indiana Church boasts of having the largest congregation in the country. One thing they're not proud of, however, is the battle between their pastor and one of the parishioners. Our John Johnston tells us the pastor is accused of having an affair with the church member's wife and keeping the same man locked away in the basement, praying for an end to all the sins he saw around him.
The man who used to live here says his American dream turned into a 12-year nightmare. Victor Nishik, a one-time faithful follower of the First Baptist Church in Indiana, claims his pastor banished him to the basement so the pastor could make whoopee with his wife.
He drew close to me to keep an eye on me and to work on me to accept this arrangement. He worked, he lusted after her, mind, body, or soul, or whatever, before he drew close to me.
A fellow who would allow an outsider to send him to the basement would be a wimp.
Pastor Jack Hyles not only calls Victor Nishik a wimp, but a womanizer.
I never one time made any suggestion concerning his living conditions. All of that was because his wife was going to divorce him because he had asked his secretary to run off with him. On another occasion, his wife found him in a bedroom around midnight with a beautiful girl in his bedroom, and Mr. Nishik had his pajamas on.
It's a fabrication. There's no truth to it. If I had somebody to run off, I would have run off with that somebody. I would have been glad. There would have been a way to escape.
After 12 years of being banished to the basement, Victor Nishik went to the Reverend Jack Hyles and told him, "I can't take it anymore." He says Hyles was good enough to build him his own separate bedroom, there up over the garage. but still kept him apart from his family. Nishik claims Hyles not only controlled his wife, but every aspect of their lives.
It was down to the minute and the hour when I would come and go and when she would come and go. And it all worked into our responsibilities at the church so that people would not question why these two were never together.
Mrs. Nishik is a member of my staff and has been for over 25 years, a faithful, loyal member of our staff. I am her pastor, her employer, and her friend, and that's all.
Nothing more.
Nothing more. Is there or has there been?
Her husband, Victor, was a deacon at First Baptist Church of Hammond, and for years, rumors swirled that Ginny and Jack had a much closer relationship than anyone wanted to admit. It wasn't just whispers. Victor himself spoke out about how Jack Hyles manipulated and destroyed his family.
Our lives to the nth degree. This was the extent of my accusation. But I will not go insofar as sexual because I never caught them in bed together.
Despite saying that, Nishik claims Hyles offered to swap wives.
He said, if you want her for the same relationship I had with Jenny, you have my permission. And I told him that he had, I told him that he was a sick person.
I could not tell you how I felt when he dared to say that my wife would even consider such a thing. My wife is a clean, moral lady in the strictest sense of the word. And Mr. Nishik was just telling a bold-faced prevarication and lie when he said that.
Hyles has been pastor at the First Baptist Church for almost 30 years. He claims to have a congregation nationwide of more than 65,000. The church itself looks like a corporation, fully equipped with a department store-sized parking lot. About 7,000 of Hyles' followers pack his church here in Hammond, Indiana, faithfully every Sunday. Victor Nishik calls the congregation a cult. It's another allegation that Hyles flatly denies.
Many of us see symptoms of a Jimmy Jones situation being repeated. And I'm not kidding you.
Realistically?
Realistically. He has stated publicly, if he called and said, staff, drive up on the Skyway Bridge and jump into the river, they would all do it.
I've given my life here for 30 years. They love me, I love them. But I'm not God. And this is not a cult, and I'm not a cult leader. I'm a pastor of a New Testament Baptist church that loves his people and wants to help them.
But Nishik is convinced he was brainwashed into being a believer for 14 years.
Do you look back on this now and feel foolish at all?
No, I don't feel like a fool at all. In fact, I feel very strongly that I did the right thing. Because leaving, and this I believe very strongly now, is leaving would have tossed my children into a meat grinder.
There are some who would probably watch this story and say, how could you allow this to go on for so long?
I was totally committed to the ministry. I would not dare compromise it. I have men in this church now that tell me that they would willingly give up their wives for this ministry if it meant, to propagate and to make it more successful. I felt I was doing God a favor.
I've had one woman in my life, John. One woman in my life. That's the mother of my children. And after 62 years of working for integrity and character, to have a shadow cast over it, it hurts just like it hurts you.
We can add one fact in this story. Victor Nishik and his wife Jeannie are now divorced. They live separately.
The level of control Jack had over his congregation ensured that many ignored or dismissed allegations, but for those who saw the signs, it was undeniable. Hyles built a culture of silence. The loyalty he demanded from his congregation meant that even the most horrific abuses were ignored or covered up. For example, Dave Hyles' sexual abuse allegations. Multiple women have came forward with the stories of grooming, sexual assault, and cover-ups. The church response: relocate him, keep it quiet, and move on, still to this day. With Dave Hyles, and again, I will get in more detail in future episodes about Dave Hyles, the scandal, the active murder investigation that's still active in the state of Indiana, still active. And him and his wife, Brenda, are trying to open a new ministry, which is something we will deep dive into another episode. Another huge scandal in the First Baptist Church of Hammond history, in a way, is the Jack Schaap scandal. After
he had a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old girl and said essentially that Jesus made him do it. Now a former mega church pastor, I should say, is being sentenced. That's first here on Fox 32 News at noon. And thanks so much for joining us. I'm Corey Chambers. Anna is off today. As a pastor, he led a flock of 15,000. Now, Jack Schaap is facing years in prison.
After Jack Hyles' death, Jack Schaap, his son-in-law, was caught having a sexual relationship with a young girl. Instead of immediate action, there was hesitation. The church had a long history of protecting its own. Schaap eventually went to prison, but many believed he was just another product of the system Hyles built. There was a lot of people in the church. They were so angry at the thought of giving this any attention because, you know, with Jack Hyles, you always heard at First Baptist Church of Hammond, it's all lies, it's all lies. So when they started doing it with Jack Schaap after Hyles' death, it was easy to kind of just get in that routine of dismissing it and saying that flat out, it's lies. You know, abuse within the church and school. Stories from students at Hammond Baptist schools and Hyles Anderson College reveal patterns of physical, emotional, sexual abuse hidden under the guise of discipline or God's will, which is something else that you can hear throughout my platform, season 1, season 2, and future more, unfortunately, where I have sat down already with survivors of HB or Hyles Anderson, where they have said, you know, the emotional, the physical, and sometimes even the sexual abuse that they have endured and witnessed, and just thought that it was part of God's will for their life. And it's unfortunate, but that's kind of what the IFB, in a way, definitely, again, Hyles started this in a way. I want to talk a little bit because I feel like a lot of people don't talk about him, but I think it's very important because he does play a huge role in the IFB, but especially with Jack Hyles.
This is the moment that this conference has been drawn to these last 2 days. These next few moments will be the last time that we get to hear Dr. Jack Hyles during this meeting. He's a man whose life has been touched and empowered by the Holy Spirit. He's a man that has stood with character and integrity that is unreproachable. He's a man that's been an example to every preacher in America. He's a friend, a dear friend of everyone who stands for the Word of God.
So David Gibbs Jr., founder of the Christian Law Association, CLA, has been tied to IFB churches, often acting as their legal shield. Instead of fighting for survivors, Gibbs and the CLA have repeatedly helped churches avoid lawsuits, silencing victims, ensuring that abuse allegations were handled internally. First Baptist Church of Hammond benefited greatly from these legal survivors were pressured to stay quiet, parents were convinced to forgive and forget, and the reputation of the church was prioritized over the safety of its members. So many cases, and not only just First Baptist Church of Hammond or Hyles, like he's not the only pastor that's ever covered up abuse, right, within the IFB movement, but that mindset that really we're going to handle it, but in reality, nobody even knows. There could be so many members that you're like, why are you going there? But they didn't know. They didn't know, right? There's probably so many people looking back regret that they ever sat in the church pew, but they didn't know. So I always say give grace to a certain extent, you know? Jack Hyles was like the big Elvis, right? Give anything and everything they can. They gave him $70,000 for his 70th birthday just to say, thank you, Pastor.
You. Bring it right on up here.
That is $70,000 of real cash.
For him to say that all these people in this world are just horrible people because they're self-centered or whatever. Well, newsflash, Jack Hyles, you were so self-centered and you had everyone thinking that you were just this great godly man. And they had pictures of him in their house. People would wear the things to make it look like you're Jack Hyles, right?
You need more proof of the idolatry of Jack Hyles? Exhibit A might be this souvenir that was passed out at the 100th anniversary of First Baptist Church of Hammond. If you can't be Brother Jack, apparently the next best thing is to put on a false face.
Even though Halloween's bad and whatever, you can still walk around like Jack Hyles. Jack Hyles was big about honoring him in a way, never questioning him, that mindset of that he is the way, right? He is this godly man. He has all the answers in a way. And so Jack Hyles passed away in 2001, but his legacy lives on. His teachings continue to influence IFB churches across the country, and the culture he created still affects thousands till this day. Hyles Anderson College still operates, churning out pastors trained in the same extreme ideology, and First Baptist Church of Hammond, it still stands, though its reputation is forever stained. So, Jack Hyles was a man who preached about holiness but lived a life of hypocrisy. He built an empire, but at the cost of so many innocent lives, and to this day, survivors of First Baptist Church of Hammond and the IFB movement continues to seek justice. If you or someone has been affected by abuse in a church setting, know that you are not alone. We believe you and we stand with you. If you'd like to hear more survivor stories and deep dive into IFB corruptions, make sure to subscribe to the We Are One podcast. We'll be back next week with another eye-opening episode. Until then, stay safe, stay strong, and keep speaking the truth.